Happy Thursday, Laura. How are you?
Hello, Benyamin. I'm doing well. I just set up my new microphone, so now we're both matching and official in the audio department, at least.
You sound
Big
so clear. This is
changes
gonna be
here at
amazing.
the forward.
Yeah,
That's
I can
good.
imagine
That's
our
good.
conversations are gonna be so much clearer now.
Hopefully, elucidating as well. But
Yeah.
what's up at the farm? How's Passover preparation going, or are you
Uh,
Passover preparing?
no, we are. I'm actually headed to Pittsburgh tonight to do my Passover
Oh,
shopping,
exciting!
and
Exciting. Is
looking
that the
forward to our
closest
chat.
Jewish
Uh,
Mecca?
yeah, Pittsburgh
Is
is the
that the
closest
closest?
Jewish.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the closest, and I'll get my shank bone while I'm there, and I'm looking forward today on our show. We're gonna have Rabbi Norman Schloss will be on our show later in the episode to tell us all about his experience helping make food kosher for Passover. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, really excited to chat with him as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't
So,
quite have
so
to pilgrimage to Pittsburgh. I'm just going to New Jersey for the Seders. So I'm not even really doing any cleaning or cooking. It's really nice. I did make
oh, that must be nice.
homemade homemade pickles, but that was more procrastinating for what turned out to be a lovely interview with the author Daniel Gordis, which hopefully will be on our site before Passover, but we'll keep you all posted.
Well, yeah, I'm super excited to hear about that interview. So let's talk about some news of the week. What have you been following?
So Robert Kraft at it again, Jewish multimillionaire, owner of I think several sports teams. Right? I'm not the sports person on the forward
He
desk,
owns
so
the Boston. Well, now everyone's gonna be upset at me. The New England
yeah. This is
Patriots, I think,
Let
is
us
his team.
know in the comments how disappointed you are in us for not knowing which teams Robert Kraft owns. But in any event, he has just launched a $25 million campaign to combat anti-Semitism. We've covered it on our site, and as many things designed to combat anti Semitism, it's a little unclear whether or not they're going to be effective or if this is the best use of $25 million. But you've been following this closely. What have you been seeing and thinking?
Yeah, for anyone who's interested, I just put a link in the comments to this article that we posted about it. So, you know, it seems a little strange to me in this day of bifurcated media consumption where everyone's on their phones and, they always talk about the decline of what they call linear TV. Less and less people are watching, live
Hmm.
television, especially less and less people are watching commercials. It just seems to me like if you had $25 million to give to combat anti-Semitism, I'm not sure $25 million in TV ads is what I would have spent the money on. I mean, you could have spent that money on, I don't know,
So, I mean,
creating.
a third of Holocaust survivors in Israel are still under the poverty line. For God's sake, like this seems more like a vanity campaign to me than anything else. And there was a quote in our colleague Arno's story where one of the heads of the campaign said something like, "We need to show the world what anti-Semitism looks like." I don't think that's really the problem. I think people are
Right.
pretty clear on what hate crimes and hate speech and targeting Jews looks like. Obviously, there are some more niche tropes and dog whistles that we talk about often on the show and cover in our reporting that may be a little bit more complicated, but I don't think the problem is that people, don't understand what anti-Semitism is, and once they do, it's going to be like, great, solved it, done. I mean, that it doesn't really seem to be the root cause here.
Yeah, I think it kind of it flattens or maybe it belittles the issue when you just make it into a 30-second TV spot.
Right, right. Also,
There are oil companies that do 30-second TV spots on on the gas, on climate change, trying to advocate for whatever their position on climate change is. It's a lot more complicated than a 30-second commercial.
right. Well,
And
even something like that is a little bit more straightforward because I think there's a general consensus on some of the best practices to combat climate change. I mean, everything's contentious these days, but it's reminding me of that ad that Gillette, the razor company, put out, I think in 2019, that had a very straightforward message, but also got people up in arms. It was, during the height of the Me Too movement, and they were trying to make like this artistic allusion to we believe men should be the best they can be or something. And it just
Right.
anytime you try to take a really complicated cultural issue and reduce it to like a commercial endeavor, I think it's difficult.
I also think that, when you're dealing with someone like a Robert Kraft, who's, billionaire, big Jewish philanthropist, that people like that are probably surrounded by a lot of yes men, you know,
Yeah.
and, he says, oh, let's spend $25 million on TV commercials. I don't know how many people are in the room saying, hey, boss, maybe there's a better way we can spend that $25 million.
Yeah. Yeah. But let's move on from Robert Kraft. There's also some big changes happening on another media platform, Twitter. This has been the talk of the Twitter town for quite some time since Elon Musk's acquisition of the platform. But the company announced that starting April 1st, hopefully it wasn't a joke announcement, but
April Fool's.
starting April 1st, they will be removing the coveted blue check marks from verified accounts and asking people to pay $7 to $8 a month for the privilege of verification. And probably a lot of our readers don't follow the ins and outs of media drama very closely. I would recommend you continue that practice. But folks have been very concerned about, when he first soft launched this project, you had crazy impersonations of big pharmaceutical companies and other businesses. It even affected the stock prices of several major corporations. And the verification was always designed to verify someone's identity and prevent people from writing under someone else's name and spreading misinformation. So, as it's beginning to be monetized, a lot of folks are concerned about the ability of quote unquote newly verified accounts to spread hate speech or conspiracy theories or misinformation online. And particularly, a lot has been written about how that might lead to an uptick of anti Semitism on the site as well.
Yeah. I mean, what we're talking about, just to kind of, paint a picture for our listeners is, right now, for example, we were talking about this at our staff meeting this morning, just to give you some behind the scenes of what goes on at the forward. We have a morning meeting, and this came up this morning, and that's like, so for example, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, has a Twitter account. It's at ADL, and they have a blue check mark, so people know that's the official ADL account, and they could put out things. There's a threat to synagogues in the tri-state area, and you would believe it because
Right.
it was put out by the verified ADL account. Starting on Saturday, as you were just saying, Laura, anyone can buy a blue check mark, and um, people can create accounts that look very similar to the real ADL account. So you could
Right.
have, I hope I'm not giving people ideas here, but you could have official ADL or
Right.
the real ADL or ADL USA, or I don't know, any number of permutations that
Hmm.
unfortunately the ADL can't think of and are going to, quickly get before anyone else gets them. And so you could see on Twitter a lot of, like you were saying, misinformation, where a fake ADL account is saying there's a threat at a synagogue in this particular city, or you know, or you could start to see anti-Semitic stuff. Somebody
Hmm.
pretending to be a known figure. So okay, not President Biden, but let's say, I don't know, some other, let's say famous, but let's say take a famous
Yeah.
actor, a famous actor. I won't name any names, but someone can create um, a fake account. It'll look real because it has anyone can now buy the blue check mark starting on Saturday, and all of a sudden, and he could say something really anti-Semitic.
Right.
It opens up a Pandora's box of
Totally.
issues.
Totally. And this is not a new thing, right? We have definitely covered, I believe a couple years ago, even without a check mark, misinformation spreads very often and easily on Twitter. And I believe a couple of years ago, someone made like a fake GOP for some state party account and
Right.
was just spreading like really scary, like hate speech and anti Semitism and things like that. And people believed that it was real. And it created this whole media cycle, but I think more importantly, when folks see hate speech normalized by what they see as a trustworthy source, it totally increases the likelihood that it becomes part of the mainstream. This is also the Kanye West problem, right? The more Kanye West spreads anti-Semitic conspiracies online, the more people that track hate speech online have seen upticks in extremist speech on these platforms. So we'll be watching it closely at the forward. We'll keep you guys posted, but it's Elon's world there. We're just living in it.
I just to finish up this topic, I don't understand the business model, the business sense here, because you know what makes the platform valuable is that you can go on there and see messages from people who okay, this is the ADL talking, this is Brad Pitt talking, this is President
Mhm.
Biden talking. And when you devalue that, like the whole platform loses its value, in my opinion.
Right. Right. Speaking of major politicians causing a storm across the sea in the other center of Jewish life, um, Netanyahu is at it again, or temporarily not at it again. He has, after a series of controversies, temporarily decided to pause the judicial overhaul. If you missed our conversation last week with Haaretz reporter Amir Tibon, we covered the issue very in depth. He's also tweeting in Hebrew and English, minute to minute updates about the situation. But most Israeli commentators I'm hearing from are saying that while things are on pause, it's really just the eye of the storm and the calm before it starts up again.
Hmm.
Um, there were massive, massive protests on the street in Israel for weeks. It got up to, I think, 500,000 people at a certain point were out in the streets protesting, and you really saw this unification of the country. I mean, when I was speaking to author Daniel Gordis yesterday, he wrote a Substack post about this. He saw last week in an optimistic way as something that united the country in a way that it hasn't been united in a very long time. But yeah, so judicial reform temporarily on pause. I believe Knesset also begins their Passover recess shortly, so it will be on break for a little bit.
For a month, I would like
A month.
a month long Passover recess.
Yeah, let's propose it. Let's propose it. That sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Nothing was really resolved this week, and I think most of the people on the ground there think this as well, and that's you know no one's having celebratory parties on either side of the aisle in Israel.
Right. Right.
I think it's great that they did slow down and said, "Hey, let's put a pin in it for now." And it's Israeli politics; anything can happen between now and a month from now.
Yeah,
Maybe they could have a new election by then. Who knows? But
we'll
I mean,
see.
I think it was the responsible. If anything was responsible, at least it was the responsible thing to at least take a breath
Right.
before moving forward on anything.
Always a good idea in general, I think.
Take a breath.
Take a breath.
Yeah,
Take a breath.
yeah. I tell myself that all the time. Yeah. So as we teased at the beginning of our episode, today's guest is going to be a fun one. He's actually a good friend of mine from my entire life. He may have been at my bris. I don't know. Norm, were you at my bris? I don't know if we can hear you. Are you on mute there? Hold on. No, we still can't hear you. Uh, now you're on mute. Now take off mute. Uh-oh. Testing, testing. The only thing I would suggest, Norman, this is live TV, as they say, is maybe to close the browser and come back in the browser and see if that helps. Uh, let's see if he comes back in there.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
There we go. All right, we'll see if he comes back in. But I can do a little brief intro. Rabbi Norm Schloss is from Atlanta, and for the past many, many decades has been in the kosher food industry. In the 1970s, he had a restaurant called Norm's Place.
Good name.
So yeah, yeah. And Norm, can you hear us now? You can hear me, but we cannot hear you. Uh-oh. There we go. Now I can hear you.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Yay. We
Uh,
got it. Thank you so much
Welcome
for
aboard.
joining us.
So I was just saying, I was introducing you. I said you've been in the kosher industry for decades. You are a kosher supervisor, and you do a lot with kosher for Passover foods, right?
Well, my hands have been in the food for a long time. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
So I am a full-time mashgiach for the OU,
Yeah.
covering about 120 companies in the Southeast, and also going to Ireland once in a while. And you asked me specifically to tell you some stories about being a mashgiach, and also about some funny Pesach stories. One of the companies I go to is an oil company. And they came over to me a couple of years ago and said that I had a request for kosher-for-Pesach oil, kosher-for-Passover oil, cottonseed oil or whatever. And I said, okay, fine. So around November time, I said, now's the time to let me know when you want to do this. Oh, okay, Rabbi, we'll let you know. December, January, I'm calling them every month. Yeah, we're still on it. Literally the day after Pesach, they called me and said, we want to schedule something for next week.
They're getting a head start for next season.
I
Perfect.
said, believe it or not, you've missed the boat because Passover's over. I said, no, this is exactly it. It's for next year.
Wow.
There are companies that make Passover products all year round.
Mhm.
So they need kosher for Passover ingredients all year round. In addition, you have, let's say, I'll just take offhand, let's say you have a company that makes kosher for Pesach peaches, okay? It's very, very doubtful they have their own company making peaches. So they will go to a manufacturer and say, when is your slow time? Well, we're slow the first 2 weeks in July. Okay, we want to have our crew come in, kosherize the place so we can make kosher for Passover peaches. But they need the ingredients back in July.
Mhm.
In fact, I do Coca-Cola for Israel, the concentrate for Coca-Cola for Israel. And we do that in November. But if Coke does not get their ingredients in by June or July, they're not going to have it by November. So it's a year-round process as far as kosher supervision goes.
With Coca-Cola, do you have to sign like an agreement? Because I know their recipe is top secret.
If I tell you the answer, I have to kill you.
We don't want that.
I will tell you a funny story, though.
Yeah.
I had to sign, many of my companies have to sign a non-disclosure. And one time I also have a company called Gatorade, which is owned
Heard of it.
by Pepsi. So the first time I went to their plant, I called the office and I say, where are you? I said, I'm in such and such a place for Gatorade. I said, oh. I said, should I turn around and go home? I said, no, go ahead. So it seems like I got special permission for me to go to Gatorade, even though I go to Coke. So one time what happened was I was at the Gatorade facility in Atlanta, and they gave me a name badge, and I forgot to take it off. And the next plant I went to was a Coca-Cola bottling company.
You were a spy, they thought.
They put me through the whole plan, no problem at all. And then as I'm leaving, they come over to me and whisper in my ear, Rabbi, next time take off the name tag. But I had one time I went to a company and I said, the rabbi is here. And she goes over the intercom, so-and-so, the Arab is here. I said, no, not the Arab, the rabbi.
Scrambled some letters a little bit, yeah. So for our readers and listeners who are less familiar, I think a lot of people are probably wondering, what is it about mass-produced goods that have ingredients that may all be kosher for Passover? What is it about specifically kosher for Passover certification that is more stringent? Why does it take so much time? What's involved in your end on that process?
Okay. Number one, you're talking about ingredients. And sometimes I'll give you an example. You have a company, let's say, that uses something using vinegar. So during the year, they might use corn vinegar, or they might use wheat vinegar. For Passover, they have to use vinegar made either artificially or the kind of vinegar that's not going to be a problem as far as Passover goes. That's as far as the essential ingredient itself. But you also have equipment. So for instance, if you have a company, again, let's take the vinegar situation. Let's say you have a company that's making vinegar all year round, OU 100% kosher vinegar. Now they want to make for Passover. So the kalim, the vessels that we used for year round, have to be koshered. And that is a very, very time-consuming and expensive proposition, because as any manufacturer will tell you, nobody makes money when the machine is not working. So you can go into a company, and let's say the kosher, you have to have the equipment down for 24 hours. Then you have to use hot water, boiling water to kosherize it. That takes time. That is non-productive time. And that will affect, number one, the process for making it kosher for Passover. And not only kosher for Passover, also for regular kosher. If we have a company that was doing something non-kosher, and now they're doing kosher, we have to take those steps as far as re-cleansing, as it were, or re-koshering the equipment. And that is one of the reasons, or that's one of the factors that are in there.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a big misconception when people hear a rabbi does kosher supervision, that the rabbi comes and he blesses the food. What is it exactly that you do when you go to like a factory and it's chemicals and all sorts of other things?
Yeah. Well, just to take on your last point, a story was told by Goldsweiger, Love Shalom, blessed memory, that he once went to a company. It was one of those days where everything was going wrong, just everything. It was a new company. He goes through there, and it's late at night, and as he's leaving, the plant manager comes out and said, "Rabbi, you forgot to bless the trucks." He said, "Oh my God." And he's giving out blessings like a Hasidic Rebbe, going over, putting his hands on the trucks and saying, "You are blessed." You are blessed. But no, when I go to companies and say, "Please bless the food," I say the only time we bless the food is before we eat it. but basically, there's the whole misconception as far as what kosher is. Basically, what we're doing is we're adhering to laws set out by the rabbis as far as what constitutes kosher food. And therefore, let's say I go to a water company, okay? And people ask me, why does water need supervision?
Right.
What happens is that a number of years ago, there was one water company that instead of using reverse osmosis to purify the water, they decided to pasteurize it, which was fine. But that morning, they were pasteurizing milk. So you would have had dairy water. Okay? So
yeah.
It turned out it wasn't a good idea because the water tasted terrible. But the thing is, a water company, I might not go as often as I do, let's say, to a bakery. But basically, they're under contractual agreements that they will let us know. And we also, while we're visiting the companies, we know what's going on. So that if there is a change, we're right on top of the situation. And that is the most important part of kashrus, being on top of the situation. Another misconception is the rabbi goes there, he has a sefer, a book in his hand, he goes in the back office, he sits down, he learns, he sleeps a little bit, comes out and sees everything is kosher. That's far from the truth. I have companies I've gone to at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch them kosherize, at 4 o'clock in the morning, at 10 o'clock at night. We are there to service the companies to make sure that they are doing things right. Also, we have a thing called Yotze V'Nichnas, that I can't be in every company I go to 24 hours, 7 days a week. But like I was just this week at a company, and I said, I need to see Mr. So-and-so. And they said, is he expecting you? I said, he's always expecting me. He just doesn't know when I'm coming.
Right.
I'll tell you another funny story. I used to go to a candy company called Stuckey's Candies, for all the old timers who remember them in the South. And when I was there, they wanted to give me candy. I didn't really want it, but they gave it to me. So I brought rugelach with me, Green's rugelach. And they had a ball with them. So one time I'm there and he says, Rabbi, next week the guys are coming from Pasky's Candies. I said, oh, let's have some fun. I said, when you finish the rugelach, leave the wrapper on your desk and tell me what happened. He said the guys came in, and the first thing they see is Green's rugelach in Eastman, Georgia. They say, hey, Rabbi, Roy, where'd you get these? He said, oh, the local Piggly Wiggly had a sale. But,
would you say?
Go ahead.
Good.
No,
I was just going to ask, would you say the bigger challenges in your job are related to the technical halachic issues or the politics side of things?
I really don't get involved with the politics. That's above my pay scale. So, so I'm there to do, I'm there to do my job as far as doing hashgacha, as far as making sure that everything is going correctly, making sure the ingredients are correct, making sure the equipment has been okay, making sure the labels are correct. I had a case this week where I went to a company and they're getting a product in. They're getting about 5 or 6 items from one company in China. All of them did not require a specific supervision, except for one item that did need an OU on it. And of course, that was the item they had in stock without the OU on it. So now we're dealing with China, trying to figure out who made it, where it's made, etc., so the product company can use this. In addition, this company was not registered with us. So we have to register them now to get them approved for ingredients for the OU because they changed the name of the company. They didn't tell us. So those are things we get involved with. Again, also labels. I go through labels. If you decide to make Benyamin Cohen's peanut butter and he puts an OU on it and doesn't tell anybody, he's going to have a visit from our lawyers because it's a copyrighted trademark. I had a number of years ago when I was doing hotels, a product came in that was obviously not kosher and had a king on it. So I said, who puts this on it? So I called the company. Can I speak to the quality control manager? He said, well, I'm the president of the company. I said, okay, who authorized you to put a K on the product? He said, I did. Because I was told if I wanted to be kosher, just put a K on it.
Right. It's like saying you're gluten-free when you're not gluten-free.
Right. And one of the two of the things that have made kosher so much easier today is allergens and social media. And let me explain.
Yeah.
If a company is making, let's say, I have a company that makes breadcrumbs. They make kosher, non-kosher, dairy, parv. Because it's all dry and no heat's involved, a major cleanup is good enough for them to go from, let's say, non-kosher to kosher, or from dairy to parv. Because of allergens, okay, they do a complete wash down. And they said they're more scared of the lawyers than they are the rabbis.
Right.
So they're doing that on their own, and it totally supersedes anything we would have had them do. The other thing is social media. Have you seen many times in the stories in the news, if a company is found out to do something purposefully against kashrus, and it goes online, they can be out of business the next day.
Right. You said you earlier in the conversation. You said you travel. I know you travel to Ireland a lot. What's kosher in Ireland that you have to go check out?
All the concentrate for Coca-Cola products for Israel are made in Ireland.
Oh wow!
So if you go to Bnei Brak and they'll let you into the company and they'll let you into the back room, you can see my signature on every single product there.
Wow,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so my daughter was impressed.
What's the difference between regular all year Coke and kosher for Pesach Coke is what?
Okay, the primary difference, at least in the States, is corn syrup. That in the States they use corn syrup all year round. For Passover they use cane sugar. And if you look at a bottle of Coke, it'll say sucrose/fructose because the price of sugar goes low enough, it's cheaper than corn syrup, they'll switch over. And now there's especially a whole thing of doing away with corn syrup, going back to sugar. How that'll affect Coke, I don't know, but they're looking into it. But there are other ingredients as well. So, for instance, one of the ingredients that makes Coke the color it is caramel. That comes now, usually that's made from either wheat or corn. Okay? For Passover, it's made from sugar. So there are intrinsic ingredients in the product itself, besides the sugar additive, that makes it kosher or not kosher for Passover.
Which do you prefer, regular Coke or kosher for Pesach Coke?
I can't tell the difference, but I can tell you I get calls.
Really?
I get calls from non-Jewish clients. When is a kosher for Passover coming out? Yeah. Because they claim they are experts. But I'll tell you a funny story because of that. About, I guess, 40 years ago, I went to a wine company that was wine was made in Atlanta, kosher wine. And they were making a heavy sweet, a natural sweet, and a malaga. and the only difference was the label on the bottle. It all came from the same vat. And I think maybe your father took care of this. We had a kosher tasting at my house, and I knew there was all the same stuff. And this guy said, this one's sweeter, this one has a better bouquet, this one is more mellow. So I think a lot of it is psychological. People say, oh, this is sugar Coke, it must be better than the other one. I, for one, can't tell the difference.
Is it the same thing as Mexican Coke?
Mexican Coke is made with sugar.
Is it right?
Yeah.
But it's not officially kosher for Pesach.
Pretty much the only
I
company.
personally think I can tell the difference, but
Okay.
maybe I'm fooling myself.
I mean, basically the only country that makes Coke with corn syrup is the United States. Because everywhere else, sugar is less expensive.
Right. Well, Norman, this has been super fun. I know it's a busy time of year for you, so I appreciate you taking it.
No, my busy time was November. I'm busy I'm busy all the time. I'm busy all the time, traveling all over the South.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. It was really interesting.
Have a kosher and happy Passover.
Thanks, you too. It's good seeing you.
Do you feel like you can tell the difference, Benyamin, between Passover Coke and regular Coke?
I think so. I'm from Atlanta. You have to understand, I'm from the land of Coke, so I think I have a certain palate.
Look, I do appreciate a guy who can say, who's been at the highest levels of producing these things and knows all the ins and outs. He was just like, yeah, a lot of it's in your head. But yeah, exciting stuff.
I do when I go Passover shopping tonight. We do have some non-Jewish friends who have asked me to get some Passover soda for them because they think it tastes
nice.
It tastes better. So
I think it's good. I mean, maybe it's also that because they run it so infrequently that it's fresher, but who knows? I that's like the only time of year I drink Coke is Pesach.
Right.
I know that's blasphemous to your Atlanta ears, but
it's okay. I get it. I'm a Dr. Brown's guy on Passover, so
interesting. That I cannot abide, but that's okay. That's between you and the Jewish community. We have Nudnik and Tzaddik of the week this week also. Should we start with the Nudnik or the Tzaddik?
I can do the Nudnik. This is kind of, in the spirit of our previous conversation with Rabbi Schloss and with Passover around the corner. I think you can't go wrong. He's the OG Nudnik, the original bad guy, and that would be King Pharaoh of Egypt. We're gonna give him our bad guy of the week award. Who do you want to give the Tzaddik of the week award to?
So, unfortunately, his products are about to be forbidden for a week. But Zach the Baker, a beloved baker named Zach, as the name implies, in South Florida, has been nominated for a James Beard Award, which is one of the highest awards in the culinary world. And a number of years ago, I wrote about Zach the Baker because there was a story that just lended itself perfectly to puns, where his delivery trucks were stolen and then used in a bank robbery. We will post the link in the comments, but he's a very lovable guy. He has a lot of love for the art and science of bread making, and he's a religious Jew. And I think it's really cool that he is not only spreading his proud heritage, but is being honored for his work. So
is he in Miami
or Florida? I believe so.
Well, Zach the Baker, he probably delivers. Hopefully he got his trucks back.
I believe he got his trucks back and he delivers. But everyone should go back and read the One Tough Cookies story that I filled with puns from 2017.
Excellent.
But Benyamin, where are you for the Seders this year? Are you at home with the chickens and dogs, or are you
I'm going to be home with the chickens and the dogs and the cows and the horses next door?
Exciting. So maybe Chad Gadya can have some live performances from
there you go.
Neighbors.
There you go. And you said you're going to Jersey.
I'm going to Jersey. I know. Super exciting. Like half of the New York Jewish community, I will be decamping to New Jersey for a few days with family that is there.
So
But
speaking of Passover, we're going to be off for the next, since we do Thursdays, we're going to be off for the next 2 Thursdays, I think.
2 Thursdays. It's no Israeli Knesset Pesach break, but
It's no
we will
Passover
miss you guys. If you have ideas for topics or guests that you would like to see
Mm.
on the as yet to be untitled Jewish news podcast / show that we host, please send your suggestions to editorial@forward.com. You can also leave a comment on wherever you are watching this. And don't forget to follow The Forward on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And happy Passover, Chag Sameach to everyone. And thank you for joining us.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Laura. I'll see you. Happy Passover.
See you soon, Benyamin. Bye.